person and remote. Let's start off with attendance. So
Eric Gaspar, present.
Ed Goodwin present.
Ron Bishop, present.
Sandra Romano present.
Carsten Stüber present.
Full attendance. If remote, please join the meeting from your computer, tablet, or phone. https://meet.go2.com/town-of-Sturbridge/conservation. In order to call in, dial 1-646-749-3122. Use access code 819-169-093. Please remain on mute at all times except when speaking. Okay? I call the meeting to order. Anything on barnacles?
None that I'm aware of.
Do I?
Okay. All right, go ahead.
Okay. In the interest of saving time, the Sturbridge Conservation Committee will hold all public hearings tonight for work within a wetland, water body, or resource area and/or within the 200-foot buffer zone to a wetland, water body, or resource area in accordance with the Massachusetts Wetland Protection Act, MGL Chapter 131, Section 40 and associated regulations, and the Town of Sturbridge Wetland Bylaws and associated regulations. We will not be reading the newspaper ad. Prior to the opening, the first hearing for each project, the applicant is to submit proof of notification to abutters within 200 feet of the subject property line and proof of legal newspaper advertisement. If these items are not submitted, the public hearing will not open. Additionally, prior to the start of each public hearing, we will announce the location of the project, the applicant, and the applicant's representative. If any of the visitors have not legibly signed in yet, please do. Also, if any visitors are recording this meeting, please let us know. Thank you.
Thank you. 6 o'clock, open the public hearing for the request for determination of applicability for 99 Shore Road. The owner is Mary Ellen Fairbanks, applicant/representative. Shane Burlingame, SEC file number 25-53, proposed deck replacement with techno posts. Okay?
Hello.
So, what do you want to say?
Stable.
Okay.
Yep.
Sure.
All right.
Name and address for the record.
Shane Burlingame. You want my home address or like the
The property you're working on is fine.
99 Shore Road, Sturbridge?
Good.
And we're
Tell
just,
us a little bit about the project. That's what we're.
the old deck was rotten, so I demoed it and we're just gonna put new techno posts in so I can support the deck and build it properly.
Okay. How many are we going to put in?
8.
8. Okay, that's eligible. Any questions?
I mean, I saw it at the site walk.
Yeah.
The only question that I had on site was there seemed to be some rot on some of the facing
Yeah.
pieces of wood. Not a problem whether or not they were going to get replaced or not. I'd just like to know if they were.
I'm just everything that was there, basically what you
It's
saw,
gonna stay.
just leave it and
Okay.
everything else will be brand new.
Okay. No other questions.
Okay. You wanted to talk about what you're going to use? Nothing pressure treated, or what are we going to do there?
The wood will be all pressure treated, and then, like I said, the techno posts, those will just be, I don't know, the galvanized,
What is it pressure treated with?
whatever you buy at the store. I honestly couldn't tell you. I don't know what's in the pressure treated wood.
Well, there are some that, like arsenic, for example.
What you find at your local lumber stores now, they've reduced those volumes, so they're showing less of a negative impact of pressure-treated wood because of the chemicals that are being used, because a lot of those have actually been prohibited federally, and some of them on a state level.
So you're saying that we don't have to worry about the pressure-treated wood that's being used?
I'm not saying you don't have to worry, there's just less worry than what there used to be as
Yeah.
far as the standard for pressure-treated wood.
But we should have some type of indication what the wood is, to make sure that it isn't something that would damage Cedar Lake.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so that's going to be a part of the order of conditions.
It's a RDA, but we can put a condition on there to just verify where the wood is purchased from,
Right.
and we can contact.
Yeah,
If you know where do you normally purchase your lumber from?
Home Depot in Oxford.
Okay.
Roy?
No, I'm good, thank you.
No questions.
Any questions in the audience?
Hearing none, I'd like to make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
Discussion? Hearing none? All in favor?
Eric Gaspar in favor?
Fred Bishop in favor.
St. Germain in favor.
Carsten Stuber in favor.
Ed Goodwin in favor.
With regards to the project at 99 Shore Drive, I'd like to make a motion to provide a waiver for disturbance within the 25-foot buffer.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Eric Gaspar in favor?
Fred Bishop in favor.
St. Germain in favor.
Carsten Stuber in favor.
Ed Goodwin in favor.
With regards to the project at 99 Shore Road, SCC file number 25-53, I'd like to make a motion to issue a negative determination for the project pursuant to the Wetlands Protection Act with conditions as noted in the agent's detailed agenda. Did you have a chance to review the agent's agenda with the conditions?
Is that like the RDA, all that packet thing that Lauren gives me, or?
It's the bigger one that's online, so,
So I can read the conditions. So SCC shall be notified prior to the start of work. Should be provided information on the pressure-treated wood that's being used. Shall post a sign reading SCC file number 25-53, visible from the road, and the sign should remain in place for the duration of the project. And the SCC shall be notified when the work has been completed for final inspection.
Sounds good to me.
Okay.
So you added the
Yep.
treating of the wood?
Yep.
So that will be added. Okay. Do I have a second on that?
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Eric Gaspar in favor?
Fred Bishop in favor.
St. Germain in favor.
Carsten Stuber in favor.
Ed Goodwin in favor. All right? So,
you all set? Do you want to pick that up, or do you want it mailed?
I can pick it up. Just let me know
I'll
whenever.
give you a call when it's ready.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you guys.
Thanks.
Trying my best. Take care.
well, we're already at 6:10, open the public hearing for notice of intent for 90.
No, we can't.
Cannot
We
open the public
cannot
hearing.
open due to failure to
Okay,
advertise.
yeah.
Yeah.
I was going to read it and then,
Oh, okay, but by reading it, does it technically open?
Yes, so we can't open.
Yeah, so we
so it doesn't. Okay,
Yeah.
fine. All right, continue the public hearing, the notice of intent for 312 The Trail. Owner applicant is Jamie Scour, represented by Mark Vigny. Brown FX, DEP file number 300-1222. Proposed project is a cantilever deck. How you doing?
Hello, Mark Levine from Ground Effects. This is another proposed cantilever dock, smaller than the last two that we did, 6 foot wide, 24 feet out. Again, on this one, we're not really disturbing the bank. The bank will be working behind it for the counterweight. This isn't. We're removing, there's actually a permanent dock that's made out of wood, pressure treated and stuff, right in this section, because the current dock extends out right here. We're moving it out so it's a little further and taking all this dock that's, right now you walk into here and there's a dock that's here, all inside the bank there. So that's all coming out, and the natural bank underneath will be exposed and remain as it is, undisturbed. And then you had asked Mr. Goodwin about if they were going to extend this walk. I brought it up to him. I designed it in just in case. If it's something you're amenable, they probably will extend it. If not, then it's not going to happen. This is our access, which will lay plywood matting down, so that all the earth and grass doesn't get disturbed into the work area. The deck itself is composite, carried on steel I-beams. This is the concrete counterweight, which will be buried, and grass will be planted over it unless the walk gets approved, then we would do the walk, which would be a paver walkway, matching the one that's right here.
Lauren, you have anything?
I think the only clarification, the only bank disturbance is for the two 6-inch by 6-inch beams that are coming through, but it's minimal disturbance. We have addressed everything else at this point.
Okay. Eric?
So there was a note in the detailed agenda about the erosion controls.
We-
That's
been updated on the plan.
Updated to your
Correct.
satisfaction?
Silt fences on here, and the project's being done during the drawdown, which will be specified in the
Yeah.
order of conditions as well.
Okay. No, I'm good. This one's pretty straightforward to me.
What's, as far as the plantings are concerned, are we looking at grass, or what are we gonna do here? Or-
It's all grass now, so it'll just be put back to grass, so, like in the disturbed area, this area here, the plan was to just loam over it and seed it and put it back to
No
the
chance
state.
to put in some, plants that would be more advantageous to the pond?
We certainly could over in this area,
Yeah.
so, you can't walk through the planting to get onto the dock,
No,
but
but I mean, when we're talking about,
There's a lot of vegetation on the side, because this is one of those properties that protrudes out on the side. There was some tree removal that was done back in 2008 and then more in 2018. Those were both replaced. But along the whole area of the driveway coming down is all heavily vegetated. So I did not recommend any specific vegetation on this one, but just so you are aware for the existing conditions. There's a lot more vegetation and
well, if he's
shade-bearing
planting
plants on
grass
this.
back in, that's not good.
Putting grass back where grass is.
But, yeah, you said he's planting grass back in here.
that's what's there now, the current.
There's no
Yeah.
tree removal or vegetation removal as part of this one. There's no tree or vegetation removal as part of this one.
Yeah, but we should ask for plantings. Rather than grass.
In addition to grass?
Well, yes, in addition to grass,
Right.
if you want to call it that, but,
So now I'm confused. Is the ground going to be disturbed such that it's going to need to be regrassed and hydroseeded or something, or
Where the counterweight is?
just over the?
Yeah, no, there'll be no disturbance other than this box here to the ground.
But there is something I forgot to ask about, because the notation of the proposed paver extension, I don't know that I'm comfortable with that, because that's clearly going to be inside of the 25-foot. But if we could maybe get some plantings in the vein of what you're looking for, Ed, over on that side,
yeah, that's what.
that might be a reasonable accommodation to allow for the permeable paver extension. If the-
Beyond being an accommodation, it's a good thing for the lake.
Well, right. All life's a negotiation, Ed.
Yeah.
But, like, if, I don't have a huge problem with a permeable paver extension if there is a offset accommodation that the agent can suggest for plantings over in that side that can offset the impact of putting in that permeable paver walkway.
What do you mean? That would,
I'm thinking, put something over here, because, or, well, no, there wouldn't be enough room here or enough vegetation. really
No,
to do anything
there's a
there.
lot of room over on,
here,
there's a ton of
there's an
room over
offset for
there.
this, and if we could get, something that's equal to or it exceeds the footprint of what's being added here, I think that would be a good improvement.
Roy?
That makes sense to me.
Yep, I agree with that.
Sounds good. Are you in agreement on that?
Absolutely.
Okay. Anybody in the audience like to speak
I
to
have a
this?
question. I thought we weren't allowed to put any permanent structures with.
What's your name and
Josh
the mic?
Catone. Josh Catone. I'm
Okay.
actually here with Cedar Lake and
I'm trying to get you on
Oh, I
the mic, not because we can't hear it.
I can't touch that, so
Josh Catone from 1 Cedar Pond Road in Sturbridge. I just had a question about, I didn't think we were allowed to put any kind of permanent structures that close to the lake.
We have a bylaw that says no new structures within 25 feet.
Well, that looks pretty new to me.
Yeah, it is. And
There's a waiver.
it's a
Okay,
waiver
okay.
for permanent
Docks.
dogs.
Okay.
All right.
I didn't know, was the town drafting up some new bylaws for docks or,
It's supposed to be.
okay, because I knew there was some issues
We'd
with that.
love you to go to the select board and encourage them to do that. That
Well, I
would be
just,
fantastic.
yeah, those are just things that I've heard, and I didn't know that we were allowed to put these permanent things in, so we should probably get these in before they draft some new dock laws that have to go in and out. Because I thought by the state, they have to be in and
Still
out.
need a waiver.
I don't think you need
Yeah.
to do that.
Okay,
I think the thing would be what he said, is to, talk to the selectmen,
yeah,
push it along.
Yeah.
It's really kind of a muddy area right now,
that's what I thought.
so,
Okay. Kind of answered my question. Thank you.
yeah. All right. Motion?
But I'd like to make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Eric Gaspar in favor?
The bishop in favor.
St. Germain in favor.
Carsten Stuber in favor.
Ed Goodwin in favor.
With regards to the project at 312 The Trail, DP file number 300-1222, I'd like to make a motion to provide a waiver for disturbance within the 25-foot no disturb zone.
Second.
Discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Eric Gaspar in favor?
Roy Bishop in favor.
St. Germain in favor.
Carsten Stuber in favor.
And Ed Goodwin in favor.
With regards to the project at 312 The Trail, DEP file number 300-1222, I'd like to make a motion to approve the project under the Wetland Protection Act with the conditions that the agent had listed out in the detailed agenda and the additional condition of wetland plantings along, I don't know.
The shoreline.
Along the shoreline,
The north, north.
the north shoreline, to at least meet
That's why we have a pilot in
the
there.
disturbance one for one
Yep.
of the new permeable paver walkway.
Yeah. That was a motion?
That was my motion.
Second.
Discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Eric Gaspar in favor.
Roy Bishop in favor.
St. Germain in favor.
Carsten Stuber in favor.
And Ed Goodwin in favor.
With regards to the project at 312 The Trail, I'd like to make a motion to approve the project under the Sturbridge Wetland Bylaw with all the conditions already discussed as part of this project and an additional condition of posting a security in the form of a bond or cash deposit to the town of Sturbridge in the amount of $5,000.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Eric Gaspar in favor.
Roy Bishop in favor.
St. Germain in favor.
Carsten Stuber in favor.
And Ed Goodwin in favor.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you. Before we go further, I'd like to introduce Nate Lane, a new member of Conservation Commission.
I made a fantastic first impression by thinking we were starting at 6:30. But thank
And I thought you were a college.
We just wanted to make us
We wouldn't have known.
We allow the college professors to come in after the bell, but no one else is allowed. All right. Where are we at?
4.
Number 4, continue the public hearing for the notice of intent for Cedar Lake. Applicant is Cedar Lake Association, represented by PRC DEP file number 300-1229, proposed project vegetation management.
How you doing?
Hello again. How are you?
Please introduce yourselves
Carl Nielsen with TRC.
to the mic.
Carl Nielsen with TRC.
I'm Suzanne Brozak, Tukabinski Drive, and I'm a trustee of Cedar Lake.
Yeah, just put the mic, we're not supposed to touch the mics.
Leave it right there.
We have a
Don't touch
notice. They put the notice next to each of our mics,
The bright yellow paper.
Oh, there it is, yeah.
and nobody listens.
You're in trouble already.
I guess I am. Do not touch
There.
or move.
All right. Go ahead.
So we explained the project last time we were here. Basically, they're requesting continued herbicide treatment at Cedar Lake, similar to what has been done in the past, with a few additional herbicides that we are potentially using. About 5 acres are treated every year, or would be treated next year. We provided a map showing those 5 acres, and that's out of 156 acres, or just over 3% of the lake area is being treated. And the goal is to control primarily fanwort and milfoil. The lake has very small patches of fanwort and milfoil, and we're just looking to keep those under control from spreading throughout the pond. And then the northern cove has thinleaf pondweed, which has grown to a dense level that's impacting safety, swimming, boating, et cetera, in that area. And and lastly, we will ask to extend the drawdown management plan that's been in place previously, and we would have to provide you with an updated operational plan for that before that gets implemented in the fall. That's
So
that's a winter drawdown.
So when do you plan to bring that forward?
After we get the map from this summer, this spring, when we go out and map the lake again, we'll have a.
Or what you're going to treat?
Yeah, we need detailed bathymetry, and we don't have that right now, so we'll get some depth measurements when we're out collecting the plant data that we would routinely collect as part of the plant monitoring work that we do.
So, it's not clear yet which areas are going to be
Treated?
treated.
Oh, there's a map. We have a figure that we submitted.
Bring that up.
Anna, can you bring up the figure with the treatment?
Yes, I believe I can. Guess I can share the screen.
Thanks. And this is Anna Chase with TRC. Sorry we didn't
Yeah,
introduce
we should
her.
have introduced you.
I forgot she was there.
That's
Sorry.
Me too.
So, having some technical difficulties with screen sharing.
There it is.
All right, excellent. Yeah, so this is a map of this is thinleaf pondweed as we mapped it last spring on May 9th. Scroll down and show you the areas that were treated by Solitude Lake Management last spring. So they treated the sort of northern tip for thinleaf pondweed, and then 2 patches down in the southeastern portion of the lake for the invasives, variable leaf milfoil and fanwort. So we expect that these plants are that the invasives will likely be found in a similar area this spring, and similarly the thinleaf pondweed is only really an issue in this shallow northern area when it gets to sort of excessive densities and causes issues with impeding recreational use. So we won't know until we get on the water each year where exactly treatments will be called for, because the distribution of the plants changes annually, but this is a good guide. We don't expect there to be sort of large-scale changes year over year.
Yeah, we would submit a report every year. So if this is if you would give us a 5-year permit, that'd be even better. But a 3-year permit, we would basically send you a report every fall showing you where we found plants, what was treated, what the results were, and then recommendations for the upcoming season.
But only within the polygons that are shown in that map? Or
No, they could be anywhere in the lake.
Okay.
Yeah. If
Yeah,
we find milfoil
up here, I can show you where we have some maps. So this is a map showing overall plant cover in the lake. So each point indicates survey location. So we had our crews we kind of circumnavigate the lake and zigzag over shallow areas looking for plants. So not just in those problematic areas, because we want to find invasive species if there's a few of them in a different area where we haven't seen them in the past.
Yeah, we map the lake each year and look for the invasive species, and then that would be the map that we would share with the herbicide contractor that would be hired separately. We're not herbicide contractors. And then they would come in and do that work. And if you would like to see, they have to notify DEP each year for the treatment plan. They have to notify the Conservation Commission for that treatment plan, and then the lake gets publicly posted as well each year before treatment. So there's a process each year that would be adhered to, similar to the other lakes in town.
So are the residents notified with chemicals that are being, all the residents are being notified of the chemicals used in the schedule of the treatment every year?
The lake gets posted every year, yes.
And who contracts with the herbicide?
We do, this Cedar Lake Association. And historically, it's been Solitude that's been doing our treatments.
And do you have those terms and conditions built into your contract, purchase order?
What do you mean?
Well, what chemicals they're going to use?
Yes.
They have to adhere to the permit.
Yeah, they have to adhere to the permit. So when the plant, the plan comes to fruition, they actually submit to conservation, and we have to adhere to whatever our permit says. We can't use anything that the permit doesn't allow for.
And they are required to file each year with Mass DEP. Here's the proposed plan, here's the herbicides we're using, and here's the existing order of conditions that was given to us, so that DEP sort of looks at it and says, yep, everything's still valid, and you're, if, for instance, Mass DEP banned an herbicide from the time you approved it till the next year, and one was taken off the list of approved herbicides in Massachusetts, they would then, Solitude would know before that, but essentially if for some reason they didn't, DEP wouldn't allow it. They would sort of put a halt to that treatment.
Lauren, do you get to see that beforehand? Do you get a...
We have not seen that. Not that I've seen since we've been here, but that was when Solitude was doing the treatment prior. So we can be more specific with that condition.
Yeah, make it a condition of the permit that the, 2 weeks prior to treatment, the Conservation Commission is,
it'd be nice
a plan is submitted. That's easy enough.
How,
and pretty typical.
things, you guys are referencing the past, and that's always the way, you sell. But there's a lot of change coming down with regard to herbicides and pesticides and what people are allowing on lakes. But then, how would you handle the fact that the fanwort, it's a native species? It's not a...
Fanwort's not native.
Well, that's what it said in the report from DEP.
I think they were talking about the pondweed.
The thin leaf pondweed at the northern end of the lake.
Yeah.
Yep,
Right.
that's a native species.
So how do you handle taking it out but not taking it out?
Well, the lake has a lot of aquatic plants throughout it. As you can see from that map, any colored dot is an aquatic plant, and we're only treating a couple small areas where...
No, I understand.
Yeah, the very northern end is very dense and restricted, and it's very hard to get through there because it's shallow without clearing some weeds. And so that's why that plant is being treated in that location. It's not... it's basically a nuisance aquatic plant, which is allowed under the Wetland Protection Act.
Okay.
Have you considered alternatives to the use of Dicot?
Dicot, we have fluoridone as one of the alternative plant herbicides that we have in this permit. So it's also one of the tools that we have in the toolbox. And then the other thing that'll help is the drawdown will allow us as an alternative, if we can get some control in those shallow areas, particularly that northern cove with the drawdown, winter drawdown, you'd have presumably less treatment and use of dicot, fewer acreage of treatment, or less frequently, so you wouldn't have to do it annually. You could do it on a more spaced out period. But we'll base that, based on what we see each year when we go to map it and make those recommendations.
First?
A couple questions. One, Carl had mentioned requesting potentially a 5-year permit versus a 3. Do you have any specific feelings on that mention that he had there, number one? And number two, did I read this right, that this is operating under a permit that was originally issued in 2007 and just has been continued for the last 17 years?
So to answer both those questions,
I know that's a possibility. So
as far as the 3-year treatment, and my personal opinion on vegetation management, obviously chemical treatment should always be used as a last resort. So my preference is 3 years, so that way it gives more time for reassessment and reevaluation for possible extensions.
Would a potential comfort zone with something like that be covered by adding an additional requirement to review the chemicals with you prior to at least 2 weeks prior to the treatment?
I think that if
And we would have an annual report coming out at the end of each year that we would file
that would be a
with the
standard
commission.
condition anyway, the annual
Yeah.
report at the end of the year, but pre-existing conditions, if the commission chose to allow a 3-year treatment plan, I would recommend that there be a assessment done at a 3-year mark that would be reviewed also by the commission to, including the commission to take a look at that and see how things have progressed and changed. As far as the existing permit, yes, that is correct. There was a series of extensions and amendments and then permit tolling. But one thing to point out as well is the existing order of conditions expires on the 29th of April. We still have not received a certificate of compliance, and that is required within 30 days of the expiration, so we need to get that ASAP. And just another item too that we've kind of touched on, but I would like to encourage the commission to kind of have a discussion on the drawdown, if they would like to see that as an amendment to the order of conditions if issued, or if they would like to see that as a new notice of intent. I think that's a conversation that you all should kind of just decide on, or at least, talk about now, so that way they're prepared in their planning process for the upcoming year too, for what's going to be expected for that process. Last time it was amended, but it looked like it had been, from what I can tell, it had been being done historically without proper permits, so the agent at the time had them included as an amendment. Drawback being amendments don't go to the circuit riders for feedback and comment review. But I'd like you all to kind of address that now, again, like I said, so that way the Lake Association can kind of prepare for that with their contractor as well.
Okay.
I have another question, just like the logistics. Is it common to have an approval for a proposal that is vague in terms of which locations are going to be treated? Because from this, it seems that it could be anywhere in the lake, and depending on the year, from now to 3 years, they could be treating everything, or...
That is common, because you don't know what the vegetation is going to look like. The treatment area for this year can be completely different, because say they treat the area this year and it's fine for the next 3 years, but then they assess next year and now there's another area that has been impacted. We've seen a lot of change on Cedar Lake, including raise and rebuilds. We all know that there's an upcoming DOT project in the near future that could also impact things. So many different environmental aspects that are out of the lake's control for where it's going to go, but that is common, yes. As far as increasing volume, I have in my history, I've issued orders of conditions where if the treatment area is going to be greater than what is now or within a certain percentage, so say that, this is the treatment now. 5 acres being treated now, say next year it needs to be 7 acres, if that would be encompassed under the order of conditions, but say if it was anything greater than 10% for what is being treated under the proposed, that would have to be approved by the commission. So say if they needed to do a 10%, 15% increase to the treatment area next year, that the commission would have to okay that increase in treatment area. That can also be conditioned as well.
And what would that okay require? Just an email to the commission, to you, or would?
With your assessment for the
Yeah.
year, saying we've taken a look at it.
Okay.
There's more of an impact here, so the area of increase needs to be this, bring it to the commission, just for.
Yeah, it's something that, you know, we'll find out in May when we go out and map whether we've got 5 acres or 6 acres or 7 acres, and where that's located, and we could get that to you, but then the treatments are likely to occur in June. So it's a pretty quick turnaround from that. So if you can give us a little more play than 5 or 10% of 5 acres, maybe say less than 10 acres, anything less than 10 acres we can work with, and if it's more than that, then we would need to, you know, we'll still provide you all the details and information you want before the treatment, so if you have any questions or concerns, I'll be happy to answer them, or Anna would be able to answer them, or Suzanne. So.
Is it a threat? Oh, sorry.
Back to what Roy said, or at least what I heard out of what Roy said. We really need to have a way to monitor and control. In other words, generally speaking, yeah, we could say, you know, we're going to do through 7 acres or whatever. What chemicals are we talking about? What treatments are we talking about? Specifically, what are we targeting? Are we targeting it during a drawdown?
No.
No, we're not, but you're talking about a drawdown for...
Winter drawdown. Yeah, the treatment, the herbicide treatments.
Winter drawdown, and why?
The winter drawdown's not being increased, it's just going to be continued. It's a continued use of the drawdown.
Oh, okay, same.
The same one that they've been doing for the last 20-plus years.
You know, yeah.
So there's no change in that, it's just, it's not permitted currently, so this is to bring it under a permit.
No problem with that.
So we just, you know, in fact, we have the fellow that does the drawdown here, so that if you had questions about that, we
I mean,
could.
it is permitted
Yeah.
till the end of this
Yeah.
month, but our current NOI does not include the drawdown.
And it's all sort of ending.
We should do that as a separate...
Separate filing with a separate fee and everything else?
Do it, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so we can get it, so we have it.
It's going to be costly.
And do it for, that we could do for 5 years or some number, I don't care.
Okay.
You know. So that's a separate thing. Anybody have any questions?
I have more questions.
Yeah, the only...
One more question.
I mean, I'm happy to do that. From a cost perspective for the association, putting them as one permit that has one cycle for continuing, or, you know, being extended versus redone. You know, when you have 2 separate ones running, they're always going to have permitting costs associated with trying to manage this and trying to keep those to a minimum, because it is, you know, all
It's very
donations and
Yeah.
volunteers, so it's a...
But from a control point of view, putting it together,
It's more of a comprehensive lake management.
like, okay, you can draw down because you're, you know.
Well, the drawdowns, yeah, it's just an annual.
I think that that's, how much is it going to cost to file for a drawdown?
$7,000?
Yeah, it's going to be another, I mean,
$7,000?
yeah.
With fees and, yeah, butter notifications, consulting time, showing up at hearings.
I mean, we were originally in 2006, our current permit was approved in 2006 to do the actual treatments.
Yeah.
And then in 2007, there was an amendment, I think it's called an amendment, right, filed to add drawdown to it. So drawdown was just added to our, you know, the permit that we're working under right now.
Have we got anything we can add it to?
Not yet.
We can add it to this, though. right? We can continue
If they want
this.
to, yes, so if this gets
This, 'cause
issued
you
as
don't need an
a,
approval tonight.
no, if you issue an order of conditions for the vegetation management, they can file an amendment to add on the drawdown. That's just why I wanted to have the conversation now, is if the commission is open to seeing that as an amendment or as a new filing, because financially the Lake Association is gonna have to plan for that, and
Well,
There's-
procedurally, wouldn't it just be easier, unless it's work that this would impact, to just, like, push out a decision on this for 3 weeks, have them add the drawdown language.
it's more in-depth than that, because there's studies that have to be done.
Yeah, we don't have
Whole assessments
bathymetric
have to be done
data.
for
that
drawdown.
would-
Oh, okay.
We need, so we're going to be mapping.
it would need to
We'll
be-
be mapping in May for the treatment, so while we're out there to save them money, instead of going out and mapping depth and then going out and mapping plants,
Gotcha.
we do it all together and get that data so that it's in the, that's what DEP needs to see. They're going to want to know what areas get exposed when the drawdown occurs, and there's no map showing that right now.
Gotcha.
The other lakes have it as one, do we know? One?
Unfortunately, all of these permits have been extended, since Christ was in diapers, so, it's, we're trying to get our arms around, getting some standards around that. So I don't know that there's an answer to that has any consistency.
Maybe we're setting the standard.
Yeah, you guys are leaders.
There you go.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know, because it seems like it. It seems like because we're getting all the questions that you want to get answered, that you have, doesn't seem like you've asked to any other lake yet.
Oh, some of these questions have been asked in
Yeah.
other, when South Pond came here for some other, and Big Alum came for some other questions. There's no question. Some of this conversation goes back
I mean, so,
in the middle of COVID, when Becky brought to us that, like, we have all of these permits that we have just been extending over and over and over again. We really need to get new filings so we can start. And it was evident when she just looked at the permits and the acreage was wrong in the filings that was out there, and we didn't even know what the acreage of Cedar Lake was, right?
Yeah.
So we just had to stop the process of, we can just give you a 3-year extension, no big deal.
but so treatment during drawdown is more efficient and require,
It's not going to happen. No treatment during drawdown.
oh,
We are only drawing it down during the winter when the plants are pretty much senesced. They're no longer there in the lake.
okay.
We typically need to treat the north end in May, and then sometime during the summer, a couple little areas somewhere else in the lake. Then drawdown happens usually November 1st.
So
We would also specify that in the conditions as well, per the recommendations of our water superintendent, who did get the specs for the chemicals being used, but his recommendation was no waters to be released from the dam during the period of treatment.
Who's the water superintendent?
Shane?
Who?
Shane?
Oh, okay.
I have my last question.
Go ahead.
This map shows like the two areas, and then the following map shows the plant coverage for each of the points. Is there a threshold of plant cover that is sought, or that if it's above certain threshold of plant cover is treated, and if it's below a threshold is not treated?
Yeah, so this map right here, this was produced by Solitude, so this is where they treated. So to get a better idea, I'll show you some of the maps that we created last year. There's a lot of figures in here. So for example, this map shows just thin leaf pondweed cover. So you can see that up at the north we have very dense pondweed cover here. Greater than 75% of the water column is, or of the pond bottom is covered with this thin leaf pondweed. It's pretty much up to the water surface. So that is impeding recreational use. In terms of the sort of other areas that you were seeing on the map that Solitude provided, those are targeting, this is fanwort, so you can see we found it at 3 locations, and this is a map of variable leaf milfoil. We found it at just 1 location. So for those, for the treatment areas for variable leaf milfoil and thin leaf pondweed, variable leaf milfoil and fanwort, if we see it anywhere, we want to treat it. So they're like, the threshold for treating the invasives is more than 0. Whereas for the north, when we're talking about the nuisance native species, that would be like very dense growth that's impeding use of the area, would be sort of the threshold for treating those areas. And again, it would just be the very northernmost areas where the water is shallow and there's a lot of recreational usage that is heavily impacted by the high densities of that plant.
So it's above 70% for native species and basically above 0 for invasive species.
Yeah, the invasives we just want to keep from spreading and overtaking the natives. And I don't, have you treated native plants throughout the lake in the past?
No.
So just in
I
that
mean,
northern
middle-
end?
Right, in the
So
northern
that's
end.
just the problem area that's
I mean,
routine.
Yeah, and it's
Milfoil
very recent, right, Suzanne? Like, this is only the past few years that, since like COVID, that the thin leaf pondweed has become sort of a nuisance, right?
Yeah,
Maybe 20 years ago.
okay.
It used to be really thick down that end, but that was a long time ago.
Was that pondweed? What
I
was
don't
it?
know what it was, but I remember
Okay.
being swimming down that end, you know.
Yeah.
And it used to, you get it all tangled up and you come out of the water, you look like a lot.
So would it be possible to, I don't know if that is already in the plan. I don't remember reading it. If it's not there, clarifying that, what is the threshold of coverage for treatment,
For a native?
for especially for native species?
Carl, do you have a feeling on that?
It's fine by me.
Well, but more precisely, if I was to ask you, what would your recommendation be for what that threshold should be?
That's, you know, it's really a personal, I don't use the lake, you know, so it's the people that use the lake and routinely have to swim through it. If 50% is a better number than 75, but our mapping is done in 25% increments. So generally anything less than 25% is good habitat for fish and human use and everything else. Like, you should expect plants, native plants, to be in a lake. That's normal. When it gets 25 to 50 is when people start having issues with boats and props chopping it up and spreading clumps of weed. And then when it's 50% and more is when you start to have the recreational impairments where, because we go out, you got to keep in mind, we go out in May and map, and generally the coverage is lower in May than in June, July, and August when the real impacts occur. But we have to send a map in to you, to the treatment company, to these folks to say, this is what we recommend for treatment, but the data's only showing it 25% coverage or 50% coverage, but we know very well that by August it's going to be a nuisance and that you need to treat it sooner than later. So it's a, you know, if you get too restrictive with the thresholds and the numbers, and, you know, we're really trying to keep open and less restrictive, and we want a tool box full of useful things that we can use to minimize the use of herbicides, to minimize, because if we say, well, we're not treating this year, then we come back next year, we have to do more treatment, and it has expanded, and boats have chopped it up and spread it. And so we want to get away from that, and the whole approach here is very proactive, assess it, figure out where the problems are, and, you know, it's whack-a-mole a little bit, but you're trying to keep the lake in native plant growth coverage at low or reasonable densities. It's good for habitat, good for recreational use. And if we have our hands tied behind our back with too many restrictions and you know, we're not allowed to operate very efficiently, it's going to make it so that we have to come back and ask for that extension to add more acreage because we didn't treat this year because the numbers were too low. So I would
So you think we shouldn't control it, so you can control it?
Well, the one of the things that they're doing well, and I won't say it just because we're doing it, but I'm a lake manager. I'm a certified lake manager. That's all I do. I assess lakes and make recommendations and do permitting. I don't have any vested interest in what treatment gets done, how it gets, I mean, I hope it gets done well, but I mean, as far as which herbicide company is done, it's not the herbicide. A lot of lakes get into trouble when the herbicide company is the managing company that does the assessments, They can do the assessments cheaply because they make money on the treatments. They do the permitting cheaply because they can make money on the treatments again. And then they go and do the treatments and they recommend more than may be needed. Or they're more aggressive at treating. When I do QQLA, or South Pond, they've had fanwort in that lake every year I go. I have them hand pull it. I'm like, there's 4 sprigs down in this shallow end. Somebody go down there and get them. And they go get them rather than spraying herbicide. When the herbicide company was doing that work, they would come in and hit 1/4 of an acre or 1/2 an acre. And it would kill it, and it was easy, but it's not the right thing to do. And so I try to do the right thing for the lake, for the things that live in the lake, and for the people that are spending the money trying to manage all this. So, you know, give me a little slack and a little bit to work with, and these people have been great to work with as far as they're doing the right thing and they want to do the right thing. They're asking the right questions and they're making the right decisions.
But would any of the companies that would come into us say differently?
Say differently about?
What you just said.
Hiring?
We're the ones. We're the ones that
most of the herbicide companies do, when they have trouble permitting things because they've had historical issues with something going wrong or not doing things or not filing the annual reports like they're supposed to, we get called by the commission to say, can you help fix this and take over? And so we do a lot of that for a lot of towns. So.
I would recommend we go back and revisit the, and if Carl or Anna, if you guys can address the DEP comments as well, because that's something we didn't get a response to yet, and we're kind of overlapping on that discussion right now too.
I did make that response, and that it's just, their comment was, do you need to treat the, are you treating more than 30% of the northern pondweed or native plant species in the lake? And we're only treating all in 3% of the lake area, and the northern part is only about 1.5%. And there's northern pondweed elsewhere in the lake, maybe not in the densities that we found up in that northern end, but it's there. And
what's the percentage you're treating of the lake? Of
3.2% of the lake is being treated.
I'm talking about of that plant. If you're saying that's in the northern part, what percentage of it is in the northern part?
It's probably 20 or 30% of the species that's in the lake. We haven't found a lot of it elsewhere because it only grows in really shallow, sort of backwatery areas. But we'll look for it and find more of it if we look harder. You know, as you can see from those dots, there's only, you know, whatever, 50 dots. You know, there's big gaps between the dots, and if you go into the shallower areas, you'll find it. It grows in, you know, 2, 3 feet, 4 feet of water, not 6 feet of water.
All right, so continuation?
Boy.
Need one?
Do you need one?
What are we going to do? What are we
If you're going to
voting on?
amend it, then you don't need that.
I mean, I think, do we have a general agreement that, well, I don't even know that the amendment piece really necessarily comes into this stage of the conversation. We need to have the conversation, but when they come with the amendment, we can make a determination as to whether or not we want to amend it at that point, or we want to force the issue with a full application, right?
I don't think you need to commit to a response,
Right,
just
that's
a
what I mean.
general, so that way they can financially plan for it.
Right. I mean, my bias would be to amending it. I do have a, I think this sound management of these permits going forward and not allowing them to be moved on extensions for time immemorial is going to help us get control over these things and have a better visibility, right? You know, so I think that some of the concerns that we were talking about here is going to be provided by additional oversight that would come with, maybe there's one extension, but there's not going to be 4, right?
Right.
And being that that's the case, then I would also be okay with with me personally providing a amendment to allow for the drawdown to be included in that conversation. That's just one vote, because I just think at the end of the day, if we as a commission dedicate ourselves to not allowing for these things to go on as long as they have, then we're going to have better information and we're going to have more bites at the apple. And then we combine that with having our agent be made aware ahead of treatment of what's going on, where if there's something that causes a problem, she has the ability to write a cease and desist until we get a chance to figure this out, right? So there's a remedy to stop if there's something that she's concerned about.
Absolutely.
That we would have at our disposal, that Ed could sign an emergency declaration, right, to stop it.
Yep.
So if, I personally would think that we can move forward with closing this public hearing and taking a vote on this treatment plan.
That would be helpful.
If the rest of the members are largely in agreement with that, and then just dedicating ourselves to not allowing this to get out of control in the future.
So just a few things to clarify on, because the order of conditions would be similar to what was issued during the last amendment, but just kind of modifying some things and especially adding some things that have been picked up in the meeting. But including having contact information for the company that's doing the treatment, notification if that company is to change, so we know who else to get hold of.
I'd also like notification if the engineering partner was changed as well. If it's no longer TRC,
Yeah, we can do that.
I would also like to have notification on that.
Okay,
Yeah.
any change,
Yeah,
got
we
it.
can do that.
And then to the notice that gets distributed, to Flora's point, addressing the specific chemicals that are being used, so that way everyone is aware. 2-week notice to internal offices as far as the treatments. Signs being posted at any public access areas or recreational areas, so that also includes the host hotel. So having notices posted around the lake so people know that the treatment was being processed. Are we putting a cap on the maximum acreage that is allowed for treatment under this order? And how many years?
Close to 200 acres, right? 195 is the total.
And 5 is being proposed for this specific,
Right.
for the first year treatment.
Is it 156?
Yeah, it's 156.
Oh, it's 156? Oh, okay. I didn't know which number was right, so now we know. So,
There's no rule, but yeah, 156
that's
per
where
our
the-
GIS
that's where the
analysis.
3% comes into play.
That's where it
And I
comes
can
into
update
play.
that in the open
Yep.
space plan.
Right? So then, so 10 would be roughly 6%?
Yep.
So if we
And that-
said less than 10%.
Okay.
So if the treatment area needs to exceed 10%, that they'll have to come back
Yep.
for approval.
That seems
Why
reasonable.
wouldn't we do 7? Isn't 7 what you've been doing?
We've been treating, well, last year was 3%, 3.2% of the lake was treated.
I don't know if I'd want to jump all the way to 10 from 3.
Also, then the alternate to that would be if they've been treating 3, which is 5 acres, then we double that. We give a
Right.
10
factor 10 acres. Instead of 10%, 10 acres.
But
Yeah,
if
if
it's,
it's- get us
but
about
if it's for
6%.
3 years, if it's a 3-year permit, you can
We
do
can,
something less than 10.
we could still, if we had 11 acres and we wanted to treat 11, we just
Right.
reach out to you and say, we have this map showing 11 acres.
Right.
Can
Yeah,
put it in
no,
the-
there's always a remedy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Ed, if you want to compromise, you can put it at 8 in between 10 and 5.
No, I don't want to compromise.
Okay,
10's
so
fine.
put it at 10?
Yeah.
Okay. And then if approved, does the commission want 3 years or 5 years?
Now, did you just say 10% or 10 acres?
Acres,
Acres, right. That's what I was saying.
acres.
Which is about 6.5%.
Yeah.
So I think we probably should be declarative on this. I would think that the most prudent thing to do is, because we can do a 3-year permit with a 3-year extension, right? So, and that gives us 6 years. So just to meet, I would think if we would issue a 5-year, we would want to just have it be 5 with no extension. So I would
We'll
think
take the-
maybe more
the 6 would be better.
The more prudent way, and obviously we don't have to issue the extension, but if our thought process is that we would allow some wiggle room for an extension, but not beyond the 1 unless there's a most serious situation that we need to consider, I would think 3 with that. Does that does that make sense to?
I think it does. I think we should just do the 3 and see where we are.
Right, well, that's exactly correct. I mean, and if there's, there's no reason to not provide an extension, then we can provide one extension and make that be 6 years and, we keep it fairly clean.
All right,
So,
what else? What else do we have?
Is there anything else we need to add?
I already mentioned this, that I'm concerned about the use of Dicot because of the health issues for humans. So if it's possible to add, I know that it's in the plan, but at least saying something that minimize as much as possible the use of Dicot.
I think
If
we
it
should-
cannot go there, I say to the public.
We could put that it's vague, but that the assessments will continuously seek alternative to Dicot treatment when possible and attempt to use the minimum dosage.
Well, I think we should review all of the chemicals that are going to go into the lake. We should get a listing
We have.
just before the
She's
treatment.
gonna, 2 weeks ahead of time, she's gonna get
Right,
it.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I'm saying. And we review it with a yay or a nay.
Well, she's gonna review it.
No,
Well,
I
it's
think the commission should.
It's the chemicals that are currently being proposed. So I would put that if there's a change in chemicals, so the 1, 2, 3, 4 that are being proposed used now, that if there's a change to one of those,
We can't
or
add one. That's the thing, is we can't, if it's not in that permit, we
Right.
can't just
Right.
surprise you with one.
right, so there can't be
Because
added a
DEP
different
won't
one.
approve it.
And even say in the next year, one of these gets banned on a state or federal level,
That's gone.
that rules it out too.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
there would be so the chemicals are listed on the detailed, and that's what they're committing to.
Our veto power, if you will, lays with her, not with us. And I don't think we need to have this, they come in front of us every year. We have an agent who's.
Yeah, I think we do. I think we have to have it come
incredibly
before us every year.
I think it's a waste of resources for us and also for the lake, and I mean, that's budget impacts every single time we're asking for that. I think if we're,
Actually, I think it isn't a waste of resources. I think it's an important thing that we should be looking at on a.
well, I mean, there's a reason why we do things on the 3-year permit, and again, there's perfection and then there's practical, right? And I think if we are putting better standards in place to manage these permits, we are making a huge leap forward from the way that we have managed these things in the past.
I would
And
also recommend considering the time spot too. So if they're doing their assessments in May and proposed treatments in June, they have to get that reporting to us, get on an agenda, get approval. If the commission, for whatever, doesn't issue that approval,
We'll miss a window.
do they miss the window to
Miss the whole
treat?
year. Yeah, you would miss the year.
So just
Yeah.
something to consider.
Right.
So let's just do the 3-year.
Yeah.
and then-
Yeah.
So, do we have any public comment, I guess?
Just one. Thank you. And the mic
Announce
is here.
yourself, Glenn. Don't.
Because I permit projects on all your lakes, and to me, the Cedar Lake is the cyanobacteria, green algae, quite a bit of bloom. I'm just wondering, just a question as to the Mass Pike and their discharge into the lake, that you're testing the water nutrient levels coming into the lake at the northern end. That's the only question I have.
Yeah, so we just completed a project at the north end of the lake that I know, Ed, you were really privy to understanding all the details of that. So,
All I would say, I don't want to waste your time.
Yeah.
If Lauren has a copy of that report, because it's shared with the commission, I would just ask Lauren, I'll call her up and get a copy of the report. Thank you.
Send it to you.
you have it.
Okay.
All right.
All right, well, I would like to make a motion to close the public hearing.
Do I have a second? Any discussion? All in favor?
Eric Gaspar in favor?
Mark Bishop. In favor?
St. Germain in favor.
Carsten Stüber in favor.
Ed Goodwin in favor.
With regards to the NOI for Cedar Lake, I would like to make a motion to provide a waiver for the use of herbicide and algicides under section 365-3.8 of the Sturbridge Wetland Bylaw. You thought I was going to miss that, didn't you?
It was different from the usual 25 and 50.
I know.
So I appreciate it.
Yep.
Second.
Do you have a second?
Second.
Discussion. Seeing none, all in favor?
Eric Gaspar in favor.
Roy Bishop in favor?
St. Germain in favor.
Carsten Stüber in favor.
Ed Goodwin in favor.
With regards to DEP file number 300-1229, I'd like to make a motion to approve the project under the Wetland Protection Act with the conditions that have been noted in the draft order of conditions and the additional conditions discussed during the public comment of today's public hearing.
Do I have a second?
Or seconded.
Second, sorry.
Second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Eric Gaspar in favor.
Roy Bishop in favor?
St. Germain in favor.
Carsten Stüber in favor.
Ed Goodwin in favor.
With regards to the treatment of Cedar Lake, I would like to make a motion to approve the project under the Sturbridge Wetland Bylaw with the conditions as noted in the draft order of conditions and the additional conditions discussed during the public comments during this meeting.
Do I have a second? Any discussion? All in favor?
Eric Gaspar in favor.
Roy Bishop in favor?
St. Germain in favor.
Carsten Stüber in favor.
Ed Goodwin in favor. All right.
Thank you,
Thank
folks.
Thank you very much, appreciate the time.
Thank you very much.
Continued public hearing for the notice of intent for 149 Arnold Road, Lot 3. Owner applicant Michael and Christine Sosik, represented by Mark Farrell, Green Hill Engineering, DEP file number 300-1227, proposed project, new single-family home with septic, driveway, and well.
How we doing, Mark?
Good, how are you guys?
Good, how you doing?
I will not touch the mic.
Thank you.
Attaboy.
Although you want to bring it closer, I mean, you can't,
No.
it just feels like you need to adjust it.
The guy will come out of the other room and tell you.
I'm sure they will, one of these people will.
I walk in here alone, sit down, and he comes out and tells me.
Who does?
Touch the mic.
The guy in the back?
Great and powerful laws.
Yeah. All right.
So this is a plan we brought forth last meeting, and Ed, you wanted to go out and take a look at the site. And you had also, they had asked about swapping the reserve and the primary, which I did. So I put this a little bit closer to the house. This is where the old system was. This is the 50-foot no disturb, or the 50-foot buffer off the wetland. And the other thing I did is I tightened up this proposed cut line so it's just inside the 50-foot buffer.
Great.
Approximately
Where's
how
that
much
water
fill do you need?
That wasn't coming from.
That I don't
Did you
know.
walk it? I mean,
I didn't go through this way, but it's, so it probably comes from, there's drainage down here, so it kind of flows this way, so I think it comes from the land behind,
yeah, that's what I would think.
and I don't know how far this way it goes.
There's some amazing flow, huh, in that area, because it's all washed out.
Where?
In the wetland itself.
Washed out?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's a step down of maybe 3 or 4 feet from the upland
Right.
into that wetland.
Right.
Yeah.
I didn't see any channels in here when I.
didn't either, that's what I was.
Yeah, but just a big, broad, flat, vegetated red maple swamp.
Yeah. sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. You all
Mark-
set?
Just, if you can clarify, just for my records to add, how much fill do you have to add to switch the septic and the reserve?
So we have to, I have to keep separation from the groundwater, so when I moved it upslope, I have to raise the system, so I raised it about a foot, so it requires another foot of fill around the house, so it's probably 100 to 150 yards of fill.
And you wouldn't have to add that if they were switched again?
Correct. You have to have minimum cover over the septic tank. You have to have a minimum of 9 inches of cover. So if you raise this a foot, you have to raise your tank a foot, and then you have to raise finished grade a foot so you get the required coverage.
No, I understand. I think it's, in looking at the land, the lay of the land, I think it's practical. This whole area here doesn't have to be cut. You know, you can leave that with the trees on it in the back. I think it's a major improvement to protecting the wetland. So when the people go to sell it, which was not going to be this generation.
No, it's not going to be for a long time, I don't
Yeah,
think.
But the point is that's the only way we find out that they're failing, is the sale.
Right.
And by that time, with this one, we've got, you know, another 100-foot advantage.
One more question. I believe they've submitted an A&R for this. Do you know if that got
Was approved.
It was approved? Perfect. So we'll have an address for this one
Right.
when we issue the order. Lovely. That makes my life easier.
Eric?
No questions.
I'm pleased with it being moved. Other than that, it's going to be a nice house, great place.
Yep.
You know.
Agreed.
No questions?
No questions.
We can move and close.
Eric, you want to make
Eric.
them?
Anybody for the public? No? But hearing none, I'd like to make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Eric Gaspar in favor?
Red Bishop in favor.
Van German in favor.
Carsten Stüber in favor.
Ed Goodwin in favor.
With regards to DEP file number 300-1227, I'd like to make a motion to approve the project at 149 Arnold Road, Lot 3, to be replaced, permit with the proper address pursuant to the Wetlands Protection Act, with the conditions as noted in the draft order of conditions.
Second.
Discussion, anybody? All in favor?
Eric Gaspar in favor?
Red Bishop in favor.
Van German in favor.
Carsten Stüber in favor.
Ed Goodwin in favor.
With regards to the project at 149 Arnold Road, Lot 3, I'd like to make a motion to approve the project under the Sturbridge Wetland Bylaw with the conditions as noted in the draft order of conditions, and a supplemental condition that the applicant shall post a security in the form of a bond or cash deposit to the town of Sturbridge in the amount of $3,000.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Eric Gaspar in favor?
Red Bishop in favor.
Van German in favor.
Carsten Stüber in favor.
Ed Goodwin in favor. Good.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Mark.
Have a good evening.
You too. Take care. Continue the public hearing for the notice of intent for 346 Lead Mine Road, owner applicant, what is it? A Services?
AJ.
AJ.
I'm sorry, yeah, AJ Services. Representative Dave Sadowski, DEP file number 300-1226, proposed project, new single-family home, driveway and well.
I'm not sure if Dave was able to call in. He was going to try to call in since he's not available to be in person.
You did try to call in yesterday.
Yeah, he told me.
I had a phone call from him at
He just texted me asking if he should call in, so I told him yes. The way we left off last time, you wanted to do a site walk. We did the site walk. We also asked that Glenn would be able to take a look at the flags and the wetlands. He was actually, I believe it was yesterday morning with the concert. Wednesday morning? Yeah, yesterday. Taking a look at that and refining, I think he sent. I don't know, Glenn, if you'd like to make some comments first?
If I can just address the site inspection that I had. It was on the wetland line, because this is my wetland line, and we appreciate that I heard that it was needed to review. I apologize. I did send a letter in. You probably don't have it because it was just an inspection yesterday. And the issue is, when I flag a wetland line, I'm always invited by my clients. They didn't know to, on any site inspection, so I can justify my line there and not out, not here in the way we can't see plants. We appreciate that Ms. Vivian and I, that she could come out and we went over the line. My report reads, and I'll just, because you haven't had it 7 days, so I'll just say what I did send in, so it is in your file, is that we had that inspection. Make sure my office put the right date on it. Anyway, we had the inspection yesterday, and we did 4/2. Here it is. You had a meeting on 3/26. That's Wednesday, but yesterday 4/2. And what we went over was the layer of mountain laurel that covers within that, which is a FAC-up plant within the upland area, and the other plants that were in that upland area were generally northern red oak, not generally dominating, northern red oak, chestnut oak, sassafras, sweet birch. Again, the underlaying layer of, and all these plants that I'm talking about, these trees are FAC-up, upland rated plants, and then the underlayer of mountain laurel, which is FAC-up also. Within the upland, this is just in the upland I'm describing, and those covered approximately 80%. There was some yellow birch, which is facultative, a few red maple, and some eastern hemlock. And even though eastern hemlock is rated FAC-up, it's considered a wetland plant here in the southern part of its range, because it needs a lot of water to survive. And so under our act, not the regulation, it is termed a wetland plant. Those were sparse. When we got into the wetland, yes, you saw more yellow birch, facultative, red maple, and more eastern hemlock with some cinnamon fern. The soils were augered. Lauren had her auger, I had mine. We were augering. In my report, I described 10YR 4.4, 10YR 4.6, which is 10 yellow red hue value chroma, 10YR is 10 yellow red, 4 value 4 chroma, upland color in the B horizon within 12 inches of the soil surface or bottom of the O horizon, which in general is an inch or two of O horizon on this more mature forest. In the wetland, we didn't auger in the wetland, we stayed to the upland, because that was the question, is the upland, and also the other point is does a slope drop when you get into that wetland towards the road? And also the mountain laurel totally drops out, again, that FAC-up plant, and your northern red oaks drop out, and other sassafras drops out, and a black, we normally call it black birch, but that's actually river birch, and so the sweet birch is black bark. I have no, and then there was some discussion maybe of peer review. I have no fear of a peer review on this line, and so whatever the commission does, I'm here just to explain what I looked at on this site. It is very rocky as you go in the upland, as you go towards the wetland. On the further inland, you start getting at least some decent Paxton-type soil in there. I did review the soil data from the Perkin Deep, and don't quote me, but I believe it was 48 inches down plus that they hit water, modeling. So, again, Mount Laurel is a pretty good indicator, not the only indicator, but that understory was pretty. Oh, and don't forget the witch hazel, too. There was quite a bit of witch hazel in their FAC-up also. So that's all I'm here for, is to just describe the site inspection. I appreciate you hearing me.
Well, the markings were stacked.
Staten, I was, I'm adamant on all my delineations, when I spend the time auguring and looking at plants, as I have since I don't want to go into it because you don't want to hear it, but 14 and a half. That's when I started teaching them. 4-H camp counselor, nature.
Nice. Very nice.
But
If you've got a blue mark on a white oak, and it's about maybe a 16-inch diameter white oak, and it's at an angle like this,
yes, sir.
and you have the mark at, let's say, 5 feet, 4 feet. Is that
From
drop
the-
down? Is that what you? Is that
From
what
the
you're saying?
wetland, 4 or 5
Yeah.
feet from the wetland?
No, in the wetland. Where's the wetland off that blue mark?
Oh, you'd have to tell me which flag
flag?
it was.
I think it's the one.
Northern white oak, I mean, your white oak, unless it's swamp white oak. Swamp white oak is fat.
Swamp white oak. I don't know.
It wasn't, no, there was
Well,
no,
I wasn't doing it as, it was,
I believe it's this one right here, right?
Up towards the front?
There.
Yeah, up towards the front.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's a dead tree.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, it may very well be a dead tree, but it's, that isn't my point. My point is, where's the mark?
where's the mark, the mark?
I think the question is like, is the mark at the trunk of the tree where it meets the ground, or is the mark basically directly above?
If I have the
where-
blue ribbon
where the ribbon is hanging straight down? Because
Oh, oh.
at an angle, that could be a difference of 5 feet, right?
Right.
Could I explain?
It is.
Wherever I put that blue flag, that is what I'm calling the boundary. Whatever I hang on, unless it's been a year and a tree starts going over.
No, I'm not asking for that.
Where I hang my flag, it's directly straight down on the ground.
Okay.
Whether it's a bush, tree, or the stalk of an oak.
Yeah.
I am so specific in looking from one flag to my next flag in making sure that this is wetland here, if I'm going in that direction, and this is upland here. And that's why, in fact, years ago, when we started flagging in '86, or I was on a commission before that for 5 years, and chairman by '85. But the point is, in the old days, just talking about wetland flagging, the engineers or surveyors would always give you a rounded line back in the, I'm going like, no. When I'm flagging, and that's why sometimes some other people would ask, like, why is some flags 10 feet apart and other ones might be 20 feet apart or 30 or whatever? If the line that I'm looking straight down from each flag, if on that side of the line is wet and this side is up, then I'm flagging from here to here. One thing I don't do to my surveyors, and because they have enough to pick up with my soils and my flags, I will never put a flag, another flag, and another flag in a straight line to waste their time. When I get further down, I'm looking always at my line and ensuring one side is wet, one side's up, and that's straight, and there's no more of that curved line, which probably went out of existence back in the 90s or something, because they thought that was a fluctuating line. With soils and vegetation now, whether it's 5 feet and then there's another angle, or 20 feet and then an angle, that's what I'm looking at. Everything on the left or right, depending on where you're facing, is either up or down, because it's important we all know it's important because every square foot that I either get for my client or I get for the wetland protection regulation, that if you turn out to have a replication area, we're talking, I've done replications at 7 and 10 square feet. If a line is actually fluctuating, I'm a peer reviewer. I'll pick on people that have a line, and I just did one in Templeton, that the line, here's a flag and here's a flag, and there was a big bow in, and it was Mary Ann DePinto as the peer reviewer. I picked the heck out of her. In the end, the project was dropped. I just want to continue on that, and I'm all done. The point is that the flag line is specific.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Did everyone have a chance to see the comments from our Board of Health agent as well?
Yes.
Okay, so recommendation for this is a Presby system, which is what he also required on the neighboring lot. So there would have to be modifications to that, as well as the modifications to the reserve. So, speculation that blasting would have to be done for that type of installation. And then addressing the revisions on the plan that there was an easement that was added for emergency access, since that was brought up on the site.
I'm only here for the wetland line, so, thank you.
Not for the blasting one?
I'm not here for anything else. Thank you, though.
Thank you.
I'll sit over here.
Yeah.
And Lauren, you were satisfied because you were out there on site with the wetland line? That's it.
With the wetland line, yes.
Yeah, right. Well, that's, right. That's one aspect.
Lauren, why don't you go?
Yeah.
My comments still stand. I'm very concerned about the long-term impact of this project, even with the new proposed paved driveway. I've also been going back on projects where for commission approvals for undeveloped lots, and I have not come across, especially recently, any projects where this amount of new structure within the 50 has been allowed for an undeveloped lot. My personal feelings is I'm not comfortable with what this potentially ends up being. We know when we're on site, you see a lot of fallen trees on the ledge there. I'm also concerned that while they're building the house or after the house is constructed, they're going to come back with tree removal requests because of all the trees that are now falling on the house and damaging vehicles and structures. And that's just generally where I stand.
Yeah, I'm having some difficulty with this lot. It just seems like we're trying to shoehorn a project into an unbuildable lot.
And while on site, I know Glenn did bring it up, but at one point at the last meeting, it was mentioned that if this would need to go to peer review, and I'm just not sure what would even be peer reviewed at this point. I mean, compliance with the Wetland Protection Act, compliance with the bylaw, which we know that it's not because they're requesting waivers. So before any consideration on peer review, it would be just very specific as to what would be reviewed and what that scope would be, which I don't know if would be worth it at the additional expense to the applicant.
So what would we want them to come back to us with? We have a continuation.
Are you looking for this?
Yeah.
I don't know what could improve this. This lot's very restricted between the wetland boundary and the ledge that's behind it. So that's,
So how much is in the 50-foot zone?
I don't even believe that we have that quantified. I tried to do an estimate. I don't have my note for what I had tried to calculate.
I either dreamt that I asked this or I actually asked it. Is there even enough space to create any type of replication or offset that would be significant enough to provide evidence that we would need to justify allowing this type of structure inside of it? I mean, the 50 foot
Around a similar grade, does it feel-
we can provide a waiver, but
Right.
we've been very strict around that. We don't allow anything.
Even
inside
with
of
your
it.
raise and rebuilds, you've been very strict with
Right.
getting it out of the 50.
And I mean, we have to take into consideration precedents because,
Right.
I mean, this isn't on the lake, right? But these are the types of conversations that are going to come up, and they're going to consistently come up, specifically around the lake, where there is absolutely no room for people to move in and out. And I realize that with raise and rebuilds, we have made some accommodations, but generally it's been with a commensurate offset that has allowed that site to perform better than it did before. Well, there's nothing we can do in this case to allow this site to perform better than it is right now, just being laid in its natural state. Unless there's something I'm missing.
I mean, even looking at replication, you're looking at the topography, so trying to do a 2-to-1 with where the slopes are, you wouldn't be able to get something that's in that same grade for where the wetlands are now. can go closer to the road slightly, but you wouldn't get a 2-to-1.
I was kind of
Also questioning
surprised.
this text over here that says roof recharge chambers, and I think it's supposed to be over here, but it's just kind of floating in this area. But,
I was also kind of surprised at what I thought was a lack of concern from DEP. I mean, they had some comments, but there was nothing, like, that also, it caused me to pause. Am I seeing more than
they
I
only look
should?
at it on paper. It's, you know, it's,
Right.
it's tough to see. If you're only looking at a paper, you're not actually going on the sites, it's a different perspective.
No, those are my comments, Ed.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Roy, anything?
Yeah, it doesn't sound, I want them to come back with something, but it doesn't sound like there's anything they can come back to us with.
Yeah, well, I don't want to spin his wheels, that's unfair. And then we don't want to spend more money.
Right, exactly.
Trying to make something work that
Isn't gonna work.
doesn't have a chance of working. That's the
Right.
thing that, like, if
Yeah.
there was an alternative in here that I could see that we could recommend, and I know we can't, nor is it appropriate for us to engineer it anyway, but the reality is, I just don't see anything being able to conform on that lot to get us to where we need to be.
So, is, like, the major concern, like, is the house placement? Or is the driveway?
We don't allow any new structures inside of the 50-foot buffer, and 35% of that house is inside of the 30-foot buffer, as I see it. 50-foot buffer, did I say 30-foot?
Yeah.
50-foot, excuse me.
That's the
And
school
the
then.
closest point to the wetland for that is 40-foot or inside?
From the
40?
house, yes.
From the house?
And that's still not, yeah, that's still
Right here?
disturbance.
So there's a pretty significant portion of this house that we would be tacitly endorsing new structures inside of a 50-foot, and, I mean, making a precedent like that is going to continue to be brought in front of us, like whether, that's the tough part, right? We have to make decisions not only about the project that's in front of us,
Right.
but also, how everybody
It's
gets
coming down the pike.
gets treated fairly in this process. And I know that I've denied, we've denied projects similar to this, where there was no alternative to getting the structure outside of the 50-foot. I know we've made accommodations in certain cases, but I just don't even, being on that site and looking at the topography of the land and everything that could be done, I don't see that you can make an accommodation that's going to make this site perform any better than it is.
What if
as
we
it's
did,
set right now.
if we swapped where the house is to where the septic is and do new testing and to do a different system? That would be out,
The house
be
would
outside the 50.
foot at that point.
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, if that's
Did
an
it perk on that side? Because I know that this lot
We
over
didn't
here
go into
didn't
there.
perk.
We didn't go into there.
I thought okay.
No, we
I thought that
never, we never went in.
Ed
We
had
only
said
did the,
that there was no that they couldn't, this lot couldn't perk, and that's why part of why the lots were getting combined.
no, we never went into that area. We just parked right there.
Well, we can give you a
And
continuation.
another, or if we reduce the size of foundation, right now it's 26. If we do like a 24-foot, it would,
it'd still be inside.
be about like
I mean,
20%. And
for me, right, and I'm just one vote, right, but precedent is very important to me, because I have to be able to look every applicant in the eye and make them feel like they're being treated fairly in this process. And I know this is a very adversarial and difficult process. You don't make a lot of friends sitting on the Conservation Commission, because sometimes you just have to say no.
I've been on the other side.
And the reality is that, allowing a brand-new house, a brand-new structure, not a raise and rebuild, there's nothing, it's completely natural there. Inside of that, is an indication to almost an open checkbook for people to come and make similar applications. And we don't have a leg to stand on that point, right? And we open ourselves up to some very difficult situations. So if there's a way that you and your engineer can reconfigure this lot and swap that around and make it perk and do all that stuff, I think we would certainly consider it, but we have to stay outside of that 50-foot buffer. It's been a pretty hard and fast line that we have. I mean, I've been on the commission now for 6 years, and I cannot think of an other project that we have allowed for a brand new house to go anywhere inside of the. We don't like it to go inside of the 100-foot. We've made waivers, but inside of the 50, I can't think of one.
And then the other question is, because these lots have been here since 71?
Yep.
So it's not like we didn't create the lots, it's not like we're asking for a new lot or a new subdivision, this is.
Well, you're combining the lots too, so essentially.
Right, well, they were already, it was 3 already, but they were never combined, it was always owned by the same person.
That doesn't make it buildable, though. It might meet the zoning, but that doesn't still mean that it's a
Yeah, the
buildable lot.
honest answer to that is that you have, well, you didn't, but they designed it, and it's an unbuildable lot.
Right, it was designed pre.
Yeah, it wasn't you that
all
did
of us.
it. Yeah.
Well,
but that isn't, we do not take that as a concern. We don't say, okay, the whole area is wet, so we're gonna let them put a house in because it's old. The lot's old. That doesn't work.
Understand.
Yeah.
Yeah, so if we can get a contingent and see if we can
All right.
Yeah, I just don't want to waste your time or your money continuing it, but if you want to come up with an alternative, I'd be happy to make a motion for a continuation.
Would you be able to get a perk and results in a new plan before the April 24th meeting, or do you want more time?
No.
Okay.
Any more time.
So we'd be looking then at May 15th? May 15th work for you?
That should be fine.
Do you have a motion?
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion to continue the public hearing until May 15th,
Second.
which works well for me because I won't be here. at the
Any
24th.
discussion? All in favor?
Oh, you won't?
Eric Gaspar in favor?
What Bishop in favor?
Saint Germain in favor?
Carsten Stuber in favor.
Yeah, that, remember I'm
Got it,
flying
yep.
in that afternoon? If there's something that you absolutely need me here for that I can call in from, let me know. But
Where are you going to be?
we're going to Key West for the April vacation. And we're flying in at, our plane lands at 4:30 that afternoon.
You guys just doing your job.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for understanding.
I was on, like I said, I was on the other side for 4 years in Framingham, so.
Yeah. Well, we appreciate you doing that work.
Yeah, continue the public
We
hearing.
have openings from time to time if you'd like to join us.
Yeah, the notice of intent for 263 New Boston Road applicant,
We did a motion to
5
continue, right?
Star
Yeah, we
Realty
Yeah.
Trust, represented by
Motion
Glenn
second.
Kravosky, EBT Environmental Consultants, DEP file number 300, 1166, proposed project, construction of a single-family house.
Then you just want to recap your email?
Yes,
I didn't
unless you
see
wanted to read it.
I saw it.
Thank you very much. We're still in a critical drought as far as DCR, and that won't change until the 8th or the day after the 8th. Their meeting, DCR will meet on the 8th of this month, make that declaration. It might drop down from critical to the step just below it, but the issue is going to be, anyone looking at water table as what we've been waiting for. We'll need to be out of the drought in order to satisfy that we don't have water within 19.7 inches under this biological zero drained. We gave you that drainage report from the hydrologist, but we still would like to back that up with where the water table is and additional information. So we need a continuance until both biological zero is coming up mid-month, so that's right. But luckily the 8th is only a few days away, so we should see now with the rains, the 5 and the 4.5 and the 8.2 and all this other stuff we just had.
What?
Well, we would go for, what's your next meeting again? I'm sorry?
He's asking about the meeting. That's on April 8th, right?
April 8th is the DCR meeting, yeah.
DCR meets on
Yeah, yeah.
April 8th.
Yeah.
But then the meeting for you people?
April 24th.
I would, April 24th appears to be, and 7 days prior to with any information is what you would require. Thank you, if you can.
April
Request a
24th.
continuance.
I would.
I just have a question. Are we still
Strongly
talking about
recommend
whether
if-
this is wetland or not?
Oh, yes, 100%. It's still, I'm answering one more question through the chairman. He's still asking whether or not it's a wetland or not, and the answer is with 77% upland plants and U.S. Army Corps and the state law stating shallow roots are only on trees and not anything else, that it still stands. But in order to win hydrology, you have to also prove that, so there's soils, vegetation, hydrology. And a question about drained with that Hinckley soil and the 35-foot deep cut. We still want to back it up with there's two additional test pits from the one that we did. And there was a question by Brandon on that I cherry-picked that position. So we still are you're going to be seeing 2 more test pits, and we're looking at the water table at biological zero.
Okay, we got a continuation.
Thank you again.
Can I just,
Go ahead.
we might just want to take into consideration what date you're asking for the continuation, because I will not be at the next meeting. I have missed one previous public hearing on this subject, so
We're running out of voters.
I would not be able to vote.
I would,
So you may want to request May 15th.
through the chairman, May 15th. Thank you. Thank you very much for that.
So I'd like to make a motion to continue the public hearing until May 15th.
Thank you again. I'll cross that out. Thank you.
Second, have a second. All in favor?
Eric Gaspar in favor?
Roy Bishop in favor?
St. Germain in favor.
Carsten Stuber in favor.
Thank you.
Ed Goodwin in favor. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I'm right on that, right?
I might have one more.
This is one of them that I am.
Correct.
We are now on to 6 Picker Road.
Because I don't remember.
Request for a certificate of compliance.
Philosophical
Actually,
debate
Floor,
whether
you-
it's a wetland or
1062.
not a
On that
wetland, and he
continuance.
thinks it's not a wetland.
What?
Floor couldn't vote on that
Yeah,
continuance,
that's
so if you can redact your.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I second it.
I-
Second it.
Okay, you said, yeah, okay.
All right.
And I abstain.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sounds
It's
good.
still good.
Yeah.
So good. 6 picker, I think.
See you in May.
Yeah.
I have one more in front of you, I believe.
All right, well, we have 6 Picker Road now, request for certificate of compliance, DEP file number 300-1062.
So we went out and did the work. I am going to request that we table this one more meeting. While I am confident in the existing conditions, I need to go more through that file to make sure that they have been doing the reporting that they were required to do. Glenn got me a copy of the final operations and maintenance plan, which I am going to recommend that gets recorded with the certificate of compliance with the registry of deeds when we issue that. But I just need one more meeting set to dig through that box and look through all those reports.
All right, so both 8
Not
and 9?
for, not for 8.
6 and 8?
Just for 6.
Oh, just for 6 Picker?
Just for 6.
Yeah, all right. Do I have a motion?
Oh, yeah, that was just the temporary. So, we don't need to
No
make a motion
motion,
to
just table.
table that? Do we, or do we? No. Do we? Okay.
It's just,
So, with regards to 8 Picker Road then, DP file number 300-1066, I'd like to make a motion to issue a certificate of compliance with the perpetual conditions of 61 through 66.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Eric Gaspar in favor?
Roy Bishop in favor.
St. Germain in favor.
Carsten Stuber in favor.
And Ed Goodwin in favor. All right, now,
thanks, Glenn. See you in May.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time again, always. Thank you.
take care.
Thank you, Al. Appreciate it.
Now, 8 Picker Road, request for certificate of compliance for DEP file number 300-1066.
Oh, we just did that
Did
one.
that.
We're on that.
So we're on number
Approve
10.
that one.
All right, wait.
Yep, so we're
251.
on the road, yep.
Yeah.
Number 10.
On road, I'm sorry. 251 on road, request for a certificate of compliance, SCC file 2519, project installation of ground-mounted solar array.
Site is stable. Area was sand before. It's grass now. No perpetual conditions. Recommendation to issue.
With regards to the project at 251 Arrow Road, SCC file number 25-19, I'd like to make a motion to issue a complete certificate of compliance with no perpetual conditions.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Eric Gaspar in favor.
Bishop in favor.
And German in favor?
Carsten Stüber in favor.
Ed Goodwin in favor. All right, we're into old business. Agent update?
No old business, trying to catch up on old business and current business, also investigating a possible violation on Lead Mine Lane at a lot that had had restoration, and the new owner get creative with their lot.
To unrestore it?
Yes. So that's something that I'm working on right now. Other than that, as Glenn mentioned, we're still in a critical drought. That may change next week, but I don't know how. I think we'll still be in a drought status, just maybe not in the critical. We've had a high volume of tree removal requests lately. You're all in the area. You're all seeing the impact on them. I've got ash borer disease. I had pine borer disease. There's a lot going on, and I am being very picky and selective of what is being removed and asking arborist reports, but there's so much natural devastation to these vegetation, to the vegetation in the area, that I am going through researching some different communities and what possible assistance we might be able to help provide, because certain things like, the ash borer disease, like when we experienced the gypsy moths, that was something that is not really preventable by the homeowner, but they're being impacted by it. And things that are invasive and can spread, that are continuing to disease more trees around them, trying to find some ways to help modify that. And I'm still in the very early stages, but trying to find out if there's any type of assistance that can be helped, or that can be brought to our residents, even just kind of education on what they can do to try and work on remedying these infestations that are having an impact. I went to a site earlier this week, that had very, very heavily vegetated site, 3 trees that were clearly impacted by ash borers, and you could also see the woodpeckers going at them. But my concern with that too is removing them, and then they're just going to jump over to the other trees. So it's,
Yeah.
we're facing so many other issues that are outside of our control, and it's creating health and safety issues. It's creating a negative impact, but also we need the trees, so it's trying to find that happy balance.
Do we still have a tree warden?
We do still have a tree warden, yes.
It was very helpful, like in our
Yes,
places.
yes. Our jurisdictions somewhat overlaps in some areas, but he is knowledgeable too, and we have some great resources in town too, including our old tree warden too. So,
I had a tree snap on my property last week, and it took down the power line for, I don't know how far.
your neighbors must have loved you.
But no, it was
Or is it just
it
to
was
your
the
house?
big power line
Oh, geez.
going down to the lake, down to
Yeah.
the river and across.
I had one fall, and it hit my compost bin, but
The tree just snapped off. It was a nice big pine, snapped off. Right, it must have rotted at the
there's
base.
if you drove down, you might have seen it on New Boston. There's a tree that pretty much just split.
Yeah.
And it's really fascinating. It's clearly been an unhealthy tree for a while, but sometimes breaks are beautiful.
Would it be? I think you had mentioned it before. We could have a seminar or a
Yes.
better
So-
word for it.
Right. So we're actually planning on doing our first educational seminar for planning the future of your land, partnering with DCR and Opakam Land Trust, an event that would be hosted at the new senior center. We're targeting June. The target audience is seniors, because those are, more of the people that are thinking of the future and what happens to your land. We're going to have some different speakers. So right now we're working on outlining what that program is going to look like, but trying to offer 2 to 3 educational seminars through the Conservation Commission to our community to just try and get people more educated, more better understanding, trying to find remedies that they can do on their own. I do have a summer intern that's going to be starting in May, and her primary focus is going to be education and public outreach, including helping improve the Slack welcome packets that they send to the new neighbors. But her internship might kind of end in part of one of these types of presentations. Also, our new assistant agent, Lori, will be starting on the 14th of this month. Lori and Lauren, that's going to get confusing. You've already got Jean and Janae downstairs in planning.
We call you LNL.
Yes. Yes. So it's going to be a big learning curve for her, but I'm confident that she'll be able to pick it up. Eventually, we'll kind of be able to get to a nice, stable area and get caught up again. Other news, hybrid meetings have been extended to June of 2027. At this point, I don't know why. We just don't make it a permanent thing. Like, if you're going to keep extending it, just make it. But extended to 2027. So that's continuing. For our next meeting at the 24th, I know you might not be available.
I would say it's pretty likely.
Okay.
You know, 'cause
Is there anyone else that will not be available?
I will be remote.
Okay.
I think I'm here.
But if
No,
you
no,
do
no.
find that there's something that my vote is absolutely needed and we can't move, my suggestion is to put it as far back in the agenda as possible, and I will do my best to get online.
Okay.
I just don't. Our plane is supposed to land at 4:37.
Okay.
So.
As of right now, Kerboy's on that agenda that's their continuation date. So most likely, unless for whatever reason they request a continuance, most likely our next meeting is going to be at Town Hall across the street, just based off of the attendance that we had at the last meeting. And with continuations, it's harder to stagger the time. I don't know how it's going to play out. So just be
That would
aware.
be my first miss of that one.
Okay.
At
Yeah,
the
we've only
24th?
had one so far anyway.
Yeah.
So just know, most likely, the next meeting will be across the street.
And it's still at 6. We don't have executive.
It is not an executive session, it's just the regular continuation. Also for the next meeting, I so far have one septic/site cleanup and 2 town projects that I'm working with Heather to complete right now. We might have one more new home development, but unless there's anything in the pipeline that no one's told me about, I know of at least 3 projects that will be new for our next agenda too. Which brings me to site visit dates. Right now, the 2 that I was looking at was either the 9th or the 23rd.
For the 24th, meetings on the 24th?
Correct.
Site visits on the 23rd?
The 9th or the 20th.
Yeah.
I'm away next week.
9th is, I'm available either one. I'd prefer to do the 9th.
I can, if there is any site, I can go and visit later.
Is there, I mean, obviously for the detailed it helps, but as far as having it the week of the meeting, I mean, any notes that I might have on the detailed wouldn't be there, but other than that, I mean, it's fresh in your head. So I know we don't like to do them the week of, but if that works for scheduling wise.
Why not?
I can do the 9th.
Why not the 16th? Is that
23rd, I will be in
The
Florida.
16th, it would have to be the afternoon because I have meetings all the first half of the day. Unless you're able to do the 16th in the afternoon.
Do we have enough? Would we have everything already on the 9th, or would they be all prepared for the 24th?
If we do the 9th, like, yeah, it's 2 town projects that I know of, 1 septic replacement / junk cleanup. It's on Podunk Road. And then I don't know if Mark's bringing that new construction for Cedar. I think he's going to wait one more meeting. So there's at least 3. Those 3 would be ready to do a site visit on the 9th.
And there wouldn't be anything more for the 24th.
Yeah, just the third week is really busy. Unless you want to do Thursday the 17th. But I think, Kirsten, you said Tuesdays and Thursdays, right?
No, I can't, no.
I could do the afternoon of the 16th, but it would have to be after.
Well, the 9th, we have everything ready for the 9th?
Yes.
Why don't we make it the 9th? What? Yeah. Make it the 9th.
Okay.
That's fine if you can like share the pictures and the plans
Okay.
Yep.
before or like after. When I come back,
Okay.
I can like coordinate with you if I need to see the sites.
I'm still on my funky schedule, so we'd be meeting at Town Hall at 9, not 8:30.
And wait a minute.
What's that?
Wait at least a minute. I was 9:01, I saw everybody leaving, I mean.
Well, these two were also 20 minutes early, so.
All right, what's next?
That's all that I have.
Minutes.
I'm requesting tabling on the minutes. Elisa did just get those to me. I just haven't had a chance to review them, and there was 3 things that she had questions on that I need to fill in the blanks, so.
Okay.
Table those till the next meeting.
All right.
Yeah.
Motion to adjourn?
I make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Yep.
Oh, wow, this was an official.
Before 8 o'clock, under 2 hours.